Mission complete. Processing. World Apocalypse Dawn. Role. Devoted side character, Dr. Miles Corbin. B ending. The Crimson Wedding. To protect Ashley Reed, I injected her with the only perfect genetic antidote. I was then infected by the alpha zombie. In my final moments of consciousness, I slipped an eternal platinum ring onto her finger, transforming into a mindless monster before she tearfully put a bullet through my head. Female lead anguish index, 98%. Audience aesthetic rating, 97.2. Overall evaluation, S rank. Congratulations, host Ethan Miller. You have earned 10,000 points and the permanent skill, Virus Immunity, Basic. The cold, mechanical voice echoed in my mind. I opened my eyes in a void, returning to the system's space. It was a boundless, pure white expanse, and I was utterly alone. My name is Ethan Miller, a dimension hopper. My ID is 9527, and my link system is called Tragedy's Touch. My job is to play the devoted side character in various mini-worlds, embarking on passionate, life-or-death romances with a female lead that must end in tragedy. The more agonizing my death, the more heartbroken the female lead, the higher the aesthetic rating awarded by the system. I was the top performer in this department. Over a century of service, I'd completed hundreds of missions without a single failure. In a fantasy realm, I was the female lead's junior disciple. To ensure her reunion with our master, I used my mortal body to shield her from Celestial's sword, my soul obliterated, without even a chance at reincarnation. That earned me an SSS rank and a life-saving substitute talisman. In a historical fiction world, I was the young warlord who protected her. When she eloped with the impoverished revolutionary male lead, I pursued them, not to break them apart, but to take the bullet meant for her from enemy forces. I died in her arms, coughing blood, whispering, "Next life, may I find you sooner." That mission brought an SS rank and master marksman skill. This last one, in Apocalypse Dawn, was just as successful. My personal dashboard showed an astronomical number of points, and my permanent skills ranged from master hacker to artistic prodigy, a vast array of talents. While other dimension hoppers struggled for C ranks, I had achieved complete freedom. But I was sick of it. After every mission, the system would play me an epilogue. In the fantasy world, after I died, my senior sister and master's tormented love deepened. They eventually transcended their earthly bonds and ascended. My name became nothing more than a sigh when she occasionally reminisced. In the historical fiction world, after my death, she carried her guilt over me. She and the male lead, together, wrote an epic saga of heroism in the torrent of revolution. My photograph, tucked into the album's hidden pocket, became a bittersweet footnote to her youth. In Apocalypse Dawn, after my death, she became humanity's new leader, guiding survivors to rebuild. The ring on her finger served as a constant reminder of the man who sacrificed his life for her. It made her stronger and also made her cherish the male lead who stayed by her side even more. My sacrifice, my death, my profound devotion, they were all just a grand fireworks display. Brilliant and breathtaking when they exploded, deeply moving. But once extinguished, they merely added a memorable flicker to someone else's night sky. Why? Why should my love only be a footnote in someone else's story? Why do I always have to die? New mission world matched. World type, ancient power struggle. Background. The kingdom of Eldoria is in decline, with the northern warlord clans looming. To secure peace, King Reginald has decided to send his beloved eldest daughter, Princess Abigail Adams, to the plains of the north for a diplomatic marriage. Role: Commander of the Royal Shadow Guard, Ethan Miller. From a lineage of loyalists, protector of the royal family, a master martial artist, reserved and secretly in love with the princess for years. B main plot. During the princess's escort for the diplomatic marriage, rebel forces attack. To protect the princess, you are struck by a volley of arrows. Before your death, you pass your family's ancestral jade pendant, a symbol of protection, into her hands. System prompt. The core of Tragedy's Touch in this world is unrequited love and conflicting loyalties. Host must accurately portray the tragic heroism of acting despite knowing the futility. and in the final moment, elevating personal love into a sacrifice for national duty. The script slowly unfolded in my mind. Same old recipe, same old flavor. I could already foresee it. After my death, the grief-stricken princess would travel to the plains with my pendant. There, she would meet the unruly warlord chieftain, fierce as an eagle, this world's male lead. They would go from adversaries to lovers, from conquest to affection. And I, Ethan Miller, and that pendant will be taken out on some lonely night, caressed, wept over, and then she'd resolve, even more firmly, to embrace the male lead because she had to live well for my sake. Screw living well for my sake. I looked at the swirling vortex in the system's space, the portal to the new world, and for the first time, I didn't step in immediately. I found something in my skill tab that I hadn't used in a long time. It was from a historical court intrigue world, where I played a wrongfully accused grand tutor. The system rewarded me with a fail-safe, a replica of a commander seal that could mobilize 3,000 Imperial Guards. After that, in another world where I played a general whose family was annihilated, the system rewarded me with the other half of the commander seal. A century of accumulation meant the trump cards in my hand were far more substantial than any mere side character should possess. This time, I wasn't going to be fireworks again. I wanted to be the sun, never setting. I closed my eyes, then opened them again. All the warmth and quiet endurance in my gaze had transformed into cold, burning flame. System, interworld. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a dim palace. The air hung heavy with the scent of ambergris and aged wood. I wore a sleek, dark uniform, a long, narrow sword at my hip, kneeling on the cold stone floor. My body's instinct told me I was reporting to the king, seated on his shadowed throne. Ethan Miller, you handled this well. A stern yet weary voice descended from above. It was King Reginald, ruler of Eldoria. I quickly assimilated this body's memories. The Miller family, 3 generations of shadow guards, the king's most loyal enforcers. By my generation, the unit was an impenetrable fortress, the king's most trusted and most feared blade. And I, the original me, was secretly in love with Princess Abigail. That love was humble, despairing, like dust gazing at a star. I'd seen her innocent face chasing butterflies in the royal gardens at 5, and her radiant beauty at her coming-of-age ball at 15, outshining all others. I had quietly dealt with countless problems for her, eliminated every scoundrel who wished her ill. She didn't even know I existed. Your Majesty, your praise is unwarranted. It was merely my duty, I replied, my voice flat, echoing the original owner's lack of emotion. Rise, the king said, seemingly pleased with my obedience. The Northern Warlord clan's delegation arrives in Viridia City tomorrow to discuss the diplomatic marriage. The princess's safety I entrust entirely to you. As you command, your Majesty. My heart clenched as if pierced by a needle. Here it was, the plot beginning. Leaving the Great Hall, I didn't melt into the shadows as usual. I walked in the palace wall's shadows, the system's cold prompt echoing in my mind. Main Quest 1, Protection. Host, covertly protect the princess during her meeting with the warlord prince. Thwart an accident orchestrated by the second prince, and ensure the princess develops a vague initial fondness for you. Fondness? Like this shadow guard seems somewhat competent kind of fondness? And after I die, that fondness would ferment into the sentiment of he'd been protecting me since so early on, blooming into gratitude and guilt. I chuckled. System, I'm tired of your games. I didn't go to set up defenses near the princess's chambers. Instead, I went directly to the royal family's ancestral shrine. With the commander's seal, I moved unhindered. In the deepest part of the shrine, I found the secret chamber the Miller family had guarded for generations. Inside, an ancestral tablet stood, beneath which was a dark iron box. I opened the box. Inside, a military token, carved with a fierce tiger, lay silently. The Miller ancestors were founding heroes, once holding vast military power. To reassure the king, they voluntarily relinquished their command, forming the Shadow Guard as a symbol of loyalty. But this military token had been secretly preserved. It represented the Miller family's ultimate trump card and the final check on royal power. It could mobilize the elite 100,000 Tigers Roar Legion stationed outside Viridia City. This was my greatest leverage to flip the entire chessboard. I tucked the token securely against my body, then, like a dutiful shadow guard, made my way to the exterior of the Sunstone Palace. The Sunstone Palace was Princess Abigail's residence. I found a perfect vantage point in a colossal oak tree. In the moonlight, I saw a young woman in a simple white gown sitting quietly by the window, gazing blankly at the moon. That was Abigail, beautiful, as fragile as a painting, a hint of persistent sorrow etched between her brows. She knew her fate. Like a bird in a gilded cage, she appeared regal but had long lost the right to fly free. She didn't cry or protest, merely accepted everything in silence. This silence was more heartbreaking than any outcry. In the original timeline, I, or rather the original owner, would have felt a twisting agony in my heart, then even more resolutely sacrificed my life to protect her on her final journey. But now, as I watched her, what I thought was, why? Why should someone born into royalty become a bargaining chip? Why should such a beautiful life be forced to accept a prearranged, unknown destiny? I, Ethan Miller, have died 100 times. I understood, more than anyone, the preciousness of life and the luxury of freedom. Abigail, I won't let you go through with this diplomatic marriage. And I won't die for you. I want you to live for yourself, just once. I want no one in this world to dictate your fate ever again. Not your father, the king, and certainly not this damn system. The next day, the warlord delegation arrived in Viridia City. The king hosted a banquet in the royal gardens. During the feast, the warlord's third prince, the so-called male lead, his eyes like a hawk's, stared at Abigail without an ounce of shame. His gaze was full of aggression and possessiveness. Abigail, meanwhile, sat like a perfect jade sculpture, eyes downcast, silent. The second prince, sure enough, began his machinations. He bribed a minor attendant to slip a drug into the princess's wine, one that would cause a fever and public disorientation. He wanted the princess to humiliate herself before the warlords, thus sabotaging the diplomatic marriage and bolstering his own claim to be heir apparent. The system screamed frantic alerts. Warning. Crisis detected. Host. Intervene immediately. Swap the princess's wine cup. I saw it, but I didn't move. I just watched silently from the shadows as the attendant, tray in hand, walked step by step toward the princess. In the instant no one noticed, I flicked my finger. A silver needle, finer than a hair, flew silently from my fingertip, precisely embedding itself into the attendant's nape. His hand twitched, the tray tilted. The tainted wine didn't spill on the princess. Instead, it splashed squarely onto the second prince. The entire court erupted in gasps. The second prince, startled and furious, quickly felt a flush of heat spread through his body, his face turning crimson. Before all the court officials and the warlord delegation, he began tearing at his clothes, making a complete spectacle of himself. The king's face turned ashen with rage. He immediately ordered his son dragged away. A crisis, defused by me in an absurd and comical manner. No one knew I was responsible. Abigail looked up, as if sensing something, glancing toward my hiding spot. That glance held a hint of confusion, a touch of inquiry. Excellent. This was far more interesting than some vague fondness. The system fell silent. It seemed unable to determine if my unconventional solution counted as mission completion. Main Quest 1 completed. Rating C. Reason. Process severely deviated from script. Failed to achieve core objective of generating female lead's fondness. C rank? I couldn't care less. Ethan Miller, from today onward, no longer serves KPIs. I looked at the girl sitting at the banquet, maintaining her elegance and silence throughout. In my mind, a wild plan was taking shape. Abigail, don't be afraid. Soon, you won't have to bow to anyone. Your knight won't just protect you from the shadows. He'll step into the light and crown you queen. The banquet ended on a sour note, but the diplomatic marriage policy was already set in stone. None of the court officials objected. Before the greater good of the realm, a princess's happiness seemed utterly insignificant. King Reginald sat on his throne, looking weary, preparing to approve the decree. The system in my mind issued its final and most crucial mission directive. Be main quest, final mission, farewell. On the day the princess departs, host, from atop the city walls, gaze upon her distant carriage. Enact an internal monologue of love and duty, building sorrow to its peak. This is the world's most critical moment, accounting for 60% of the rating. Let me watch her leave, then go on a death march, playing out a shot by 1,000 arrows scene? I smiled. I, Ethan Miller, am done acting. Just as the king was about to pick up his quill, Your Majesty, I have a petition. A cold voice resonated through the entire throne room. The court erupted in uproar. They turned to see me, clad in my sleek, dark uniform, a symbol of shadow and swift justice, walking step by step from a corner of the Grand Hall. The commander of the Shadow Guard, a phantom who only moved in darkness, for the first time, stepped willingly into the light. Surprise and displeasure flickered in the king's eyes. Ethan Miller, what is the meaning of this? Shadow Guards do not interfere in state affairs. That is the rule. Rules are made by men, I said, walking to the center of the hall. I raised my head, looking directly at the monarch on his throne. My voice wasn't loud, yet it clearly reached every ear. Today, Your Majesty, I speak not for the realm, but for myself. I request to marry Princess Abigail Adams. A single stone stirred 1,000 waves. The entire throne room instantly exploded into chaos. Insolence. A mere enforcer dares covet a princess. Treason. Drag him out and execute him. The ministers were indignant, spitting venomous words. The king's face, meanwhile, turned from pale to purple, trembling with fury. Ethan Miller, do you know what you're saying? I think you've lost your mind, he roared, slamming his hand on the armrest of his throne. The system blared piercing alarms in my head, red warning messages cascading like a waterfall across my internal screen. Warning, warning, host behavior severely OOC. B-main plot deviated by 99%. Reverse course immediately or face eradication penalty. Warning, character destruction. Plot completely out of control. I blocked out the system's shrieks. I looked at the outwardly fierce but inwardly timid king on his throne, at the hypocritical ministers below, my heart turning cold. This was their so-called loyalty and rules. Using other people's daughters for peace, other people's lives to sate their desires. Your Majesty, I am not mad. I slowly pulled the military token, carved with a fierce tiger, from my tunic and raised it high. I merely wish to make a deal with Your Majesty. When that token appeared, the entire hall instantly fell into a deathly silence. Those ministers who had just been clamoring for my execution were now ashen-faced, like ducks choked silent. The Minister of War, in particular, felt his legs give way, nearly collapsing. He recognized it, the legendary Miller family military token, capable of mobilizing the 100,000-strong Tigers Roar Legion outside Viridia City. King Reginald's pupils also contracted to pinpricks. He stared at the token, his eyes filled with terror and disbelief. How do you possess this? For 3 generations, the Miller family has served the crown with every fiber of their being, to their dying breath. This, Your Majesty, is the final safeguard left by our ancestors, I said, looking at him calmly, as if stating something trivial. Your Majesty, may we now discuss the princess's marriage? A threat, a blatant, undisguised threat. I, as a subject, using military authority, threatened the reigning king. Are you inciting rebellion? The king's voice trembled. Rebellion. I chuckled, surveying the assembled court, my gaze finally returning to his face. No, Your Majesty, I am merely offering you a choice. My voice abruptly turned cold, filled with undeniable finality. First, annul the diplomatic marriage. Marry the princess to me, Ethan Miller. From this day forward, the Tigers Roar Legion and the Shadow Guard will be the sharpest swords in your hand, expanding your dominion and bringing peace to all lands. I paused, speaking each word distinctly, every syllable like a chip of ice striking the throne room floor. Second, today, we elect a new king. Either marry off your daughter, or be replaced. A pin drop would have echoed throughout the throne room. Everyone was terrified by my audacious words. This wasn't a threat. This was a coup. System eradication protocol initiated. 10%, 30%. Warning. Host, this is your last chance. I could feel a cold, soul-crushing power gathering from the depths of my being. But I didn't care. I've died 100 times. I was never afraid of death. Only of dying senselessly like a clown. Just as the eradication protocol was about to hit 100%, a clear, yet slightly trembling female voice came from a side door of the great hall. Father, your daughter accepts. I turned my head. Princess Abigail Adams, clad in a lavish court gown, emerged step by step from the shadows. Her face was pale, but her eyes were exceptionally bright. She looked at me, her gaze filled with shock, confusion, inquiry, and a strange glint. One she herself hadn't noticed. She had been there the entire time. She had heard everything. Eradication protocol. Pause. Critical plot character Abigail Adams detected with abnormally intense emotional fluctuations. Reevaluating. I looked at her, and she looked at me. Our eyes met. Under the terrified gazes of the entire court, under the desperate stare of the king on his throne, I knew I had succeeded. With my own hands, I had twisted this world's beat timeline into a Gordian knot. Then, with the most brutal, direct method, I forcibly warped it toward a happy ending. The coup in the throne room ended with the king's compromise. Faced with the dual threat of the military token and myself, he had no choice. Before all the court officials, he gritted his teeth and issued 2 royal decrees. The first, to cancel the diplomatic marriage with the northern warlord clans. The second, to bestow Princess Abigail Adams in marriage to Ethan Miller, commander of the Royal Shadow Guard, with the wedding to take place in 3 days. The news spread, and the entire kingdom was in an uproar. A shadowy head of the Royal Guard, leaping to become the king's son-in-law, it was the greatest jest since the founding of Eldoria. I became the ambitious, power-hungry rebel in everyone's mouths, repaying kindness with a coup. I didn't care. Reputation, it's just hot air in this world. Upon receiving the news, the warlord delegation flew into a rage, deeming it an insult from Eldoria. They immediately left Viridia City, vowing to march on the capital and demand an explanation. In the court, panic spread. The warhawks and peace doves argued fiercely, and I, graciously permitted by the king, moved into the princess's private residence, ostensibly to cultivate affection, but in reality, to be monitored. He stripped me of my commander title, but dared not touch a hair on my head, for the military token remained with me. We formed a strange equilibrium. Everyone thought I was mad, risking everything for a woman. Only I knew I was betting on another possibility for this world. In a private residence, Abigail and I became fiancés in name. But our relationship was more awkward than with strangers. She was afraid of me. That fear wasn't of my power, but of my unknown. She couldn't understand why a shadow guard, with whom she'd never truly interacted, would do something so earth-shattering for her. She sat on a stone bench in the courtyard, watching the koi in the pond, still in her silent, melancholy way. I knew that while I had stopped her diplomatic marriage, I hadn't truly unlocked the chains in her heart. She had merely been forcibly moved from one cage to another by me. System prompt. B-main plot completely destroyed. Survival mode activated. Mission objective. Survive. The system's voice had become weak. It seemed to have given up struggling, content to see how I'd manage. What are you thinking about? I walked to her side and sat down. Her body stiffened. She instinctively shifted away. And nothing. You're wondering why I did this, aren't you? For power, or simply coveting your beauty? I said bluntly. Her face instantly went pale. Clearly, I had hit a nerve. I smiled, then pulled something from my tunic. Not the military token, nor a sword, but a small rabbit, woven from willow branches. It was roughly made, even a bit ugly. When you were 5 on your birthday, you chased a white rabbit in the royal gardens, stumbled, and cried for a long time. Later, a passing attendant wove you something like this, and you finally stopped crying and smiled. When you were 10, you secretly snuck out of the palace and got into an argument at the market. A masked wanderer saved you. When you were 15, at your coming-of-age ball, your favorite Phoenix hairpin was tampered with, almost causing a public embarrassment. Someone had swapped it out beforehand. With each story I told, Abigail's eyes widened a fraction more. These were the most secret events from the depths of her memory. Some she herself had almost forgotten. She looked at me, shocked. How do you know all this? Because that attendant, that wanderer, the one who swapped your hairpin, they were all me, I said, looking at her calmly. Ethan Miller, this name might be new to you, but my presence has been constant throughout your past 15 years. Abigail froze completely. She stared at me, her eyes filled with disbelief. All this time, in every corner she hadn't known, there had been a pair of eyes silently watching over her. Why? She whispered. No, why? I shook my head. Before, I thought protection meant clearing every obstacle for you from the shadows. Even dying for you. I would have been willing. I looked earnestly into her eyes. But now I understand. True protection isn't letting you live a life arranged by others, burdened by guilt toward me. It's about giving the right to choose back to you. I stood up and gently placed the willow rabbit on the stone table in front of her. Abigail, I didn't force this marriage to lock you in my cage. I want to, with my own hands, open every cage for you. For the wedding in 3 days, if you don't wish it, you can tell me anytime. I will take the military token and leave Viridia City, disappearing forever. No one will ever force you again. I finished speaking, turned, and walked away without a single backward glance. I left her alone, sitting dazedly, looking at the ugly willow rabbit, her eyes slowly, bit by bit, reddening. I gave a choice to her, and to this broken plot. A forced fruit might not be sweet, but what if I nourished this fruit with the most genuine sunshine and rain? Would it be willing to be sweet for me just once? I was gambling on the first genuine emotion I'd shown in 100 years, not for KPIs. 3 days passed in a flash. During these 3 days, Viridia City seethed with undercurrents. The warlord threat, court disputes, and public rumors weighed like 3 mountains on everyone's hearts. I, however, like the eye of a storm, remained calmly in my residence, going nowhere. I didn't go to see Abigail again. I gave her enough space and time to think, to choose. And she, likewise, did not come to me. On the eve of the wedding, I sat alone on the rooftop, drinking and watching the moon. System, what do you think she'll choose? I asked the system, a rare moment of active engagement. The system was silent for a long time before replying in a flat, emotionless tone. Based on database analysis, females facing unknown fears versus known dislikes have a 73% probability of choosing the former. She will marry you. However, it will be a marriage of convenience. Is that so? I smiled, saying no more. The wedding day arrived. The entire Viridia City was shrouded in an eerie atmosphere. No festive decorations, no joyful music. A princess's wedding, colder than an ordinary commoner's. Everyone knew this wasn't a celebration, but a naked political transaction, a crisis poised to ignite at any moment. I wore a rich crimson wedding suit, riding a tall, majestic horse to the royal palace. Along the way, commoners pointed and whispered, their eyes filled with curiosity, disdain, and fear. I saw Abigail. She wore a magnificent wedding gown and phoenix crown, her face hidden by a red veil, sitting on the bed like an exquisite doll. I couldn't see her expression. I took her hand. It was icy cold. I led her through the long palace corridors, into a luxurious carriage, and back to my quietly bestowed son-in-law's estate, which felt desolate. No guests, no banquet. We performed the solemn vows and entered the bridal chamber. All the intricate rituals were carried out quickly and in silence. When only the two of us remained in the room, I felt the awkwardness thicken, almost solidifying. I picked up the ceremonial scepter and walked to her. My hand trembled slightly. This was more nerve-wracking than facing 1,000 armies. Gently, I lifted her red veil. Beneath the veil was a face breathtakingly beautiful, yet heartbreakingly pale. Her eyes, like a startled fawn's, watched me, full of unease and confusion. Haven't decided yet, I asked softly. She bit her lip, said nothing, merely shook her head slowly. It's all right, I smiled, placing the scepter aside. Then for now, we won't be husband and wife. I walked to the table and poured 2 cups of wine. Today, we won't share a wedding toast. We'll just have 1 cup, a peace offering. I handed her one of the cups. From today onward, you are not a princess, and I am not a powerful minister. You are Abigail, and I am Ethan. In this estate, you are the mistress, and I am the guest. I will not enter your chambers without your permission. I will not interfere in your life without your consent. I promise you, until the threat of the Northern Warlord clans is resolved, until you can truly control your own destiny, I, Ethan Miller, will not touch a hair on your head. My words stunned her. She looked at me, the fear in her eyes slowly fading, replaced by deeper confusion. She couldn't understand what I had gone through such lengths for, a coup, a forced marriage, if it wasn't to possess her, if it wasn't to have her. She took the wine glass and lightly clinked it against mine. Then she drank it down. I watched her drink the wine, and a great weight lifted from my heart. I turned, intending to go to the study. Tonight, I would leave the bridal chamber to her alone. The instant I turned, the long-dormant system in my mind suddenly let out an unprecedented, piercing shriek. Warning, warning, unknown error detected, logic conflict, data overflow. Female lead Abigail Adams happiness index detected. Happiness index, rapidly rising. Happiness index at max. Hidden condition triggered. Triggered. Hidden ending unlocked. Bittersweet completion. Final rating in progress. Rating calculating. Congratulations, host Ethan Miller. Final mission evaluation. SSS rank. Boom. My brain felt like it had been hit by a nuclear bomb. SSS rank? How was that possible? I had clearly ruined the B storyline beyond repair. I hadn't even completed the main quest properly. SSS rank rewards distributing. Reward 1, 1 million points. Reward 2, permanent skill Art of Statecraft, master rank. Reward 3, world rule analysis permission, basic. System prompt. Due to host achieving an unprecedented hidden ending, the system database has experienced a significant impact. Undergoing fundamental logic self-check. Self-checking. Logic reconstruction. Aesthetics definition expansion. New directives generated. System prompt. Self-check revealed that the highest criterion for tragedy's touch is not tragedy itself, but extreme emotional intensity. Extreme sorrow is aesthetic. Extreme fulfillment, likewise, is also aesthetic. Allowing a destiny that should have been full of regret to achieve the most unexpected, most thoroughly satisfying fulfillment. Its emotional impact and aesthetic value are no less than a grand tragedy. I stood rooted to the spot. I looked at the young woman by the table, who also had a bewildered expression. Then I looked at the gleaming SSS rating in my mind. I think I just discovered this damn system's ultimate bug. No, it wasn't a bug. This was its fundamental logic. It never wanted my death, nor the female lead's suffering. It wanted unforgettable emotional resonance. That kind of extreme emotional experience that would make its audience, the system, swell with emotion, sigh with regret, or cheer with admiration, even centuries later. I understood. I completely, thoroughly understood. I looked at Abigail and suddenly smiled, smiling with immense joy, immense satisfaction. Turns out, I've been doing the right thing the wrong way. No, actually this time I did the right thing by doing it the wrong way. Abigail was somewhat taken aback by my laughter. What are you laughing at? I walked over and for the first time boldly took her hand. Her hand was still cold, but trembling slightly. Abigail, I said, looking into her eyes word for word, I take back what I just said. From today onward, you are my wife, and I will become your most unwavering support. Shall we play a game together? A game to completely overturn this decaying kingdom. What do you say? After understanding the system's new rules, my mindset completely transformed. If my previous defiance was a tragic gamble, undertaken with the resolve to be eradicated, then now I was playing a game I knew I couldn't lose. Tragedy's touch system? No. From today onward, you're the happy ending generator. And I, Ethan Miller, am this generator's sole designated CEO. My primary objective was no longer merely to survive, but how to transform this forced fruit into the sweetest in the world. I needed to keep Abigail's happiness index at max. The first thing I did was address the immediate warlord crisis. The warlords, citing the insult to the diplomatic marriage, amassed troops on the border, demanding exorbitant compensation or declaring war. The court was in a panic. King Reginald was at his wit's end, summoning me to the palace repeatedly, ostensibly for consultation, but truly to exert pressure, hoping I'd surrender the military token so he could mobilize the Tiger's Roar Legion. Of course, I wouldn't hand it over. The military token was my only safeguard. I went directly to Abigail. "What are your thoughts on this warlord situation?" I tossed the question to her. She paused, clearly not expecting me to ask a mere woman about such weighty state affairs. She was silent for a moment, then softly said, "To fight, the treasury is empty, the people suffer. Not to fight, to surrender land and pay tribute, to lose prestige, the warlords will only become bolder." Well said. I nodded in approval. It's a no-win situation. But what if we look at it from outside the chessboard? Outside the chessboard? The warlords aren't a unified bloc, I said, unfolding a map I'd drawn from memory, depicting the power distribution across the northern plains. They consist of 3 major clans. The one leading this aggression is the Golden Wolf clan, the strongest. The other 2, the Black Hawk and Snow Leopard clans, have old grievances with the Golden Wolf. Their alliance is only due to a shared, ambitious chieftain. So we just need to break their alliance? Abigail, sharp as a whip, understood immediately. Exactly, I smiled looking at her. And the best way to break an alliance isn't with an army, it's with money. Or rather, with interests they cannot refuse. Over the next few days, I didn't leave the son-in-law's estate, but my shadow guards, carrying my handwritten letters and vast amounts of gold and jewels, secretly infiltrated the plains. I sent the chieftains of the Black Hawk and Snow Leopard clans a gift they couldn't refuse. The gift list contained only 2 items. First, enough gold to buy 10 years' worth of grain. Second, a detailed map of all the Golden Wolf clan's military deployments and supply routes. In the letter, I wrote only one sentence. The Golden Wolf is ripe for the taking. May the strongest claim it. The wolves of the plains only believed in the most primitive law of the jungle. No eternal allies, only eternal interests. Faced with immense profit and the chance to weaken their rival, the so-called alliance was as fragile as paper. Half a month later, word arrived. The northern plains had erupted into civil war. The Black Hawk and Snow Leopard clans, citing unfair distribution of chieftaincy, brazenly launched a surprise attack on the Golden Wolf clan. 3 factions clashed, blood flowing like rivers. The warlord coalition, without a single battle, crumbled. They no longer had the energy to bother the kingdom of Eldoria. A war crisis that could have shaken the very foundations of the kingdom was defused by me, without shedding a single drop of blood, vanishing into thin air. When the news reached Viridia City, the entire court fell into a deathly silence. King Reginald stared at the battle report in his hand, speechless for a long time. His gaze at me was filled with unprecedented apprehension and fear. He finally understood that I, Ethan Miller, possessed more than just brute courage and a military token. I possessed unpredictable means to overturn any chessboard. And Abigail, after hearing the news, looked at me with a completely transformed gaze. In her eyes, there was shock, admiration, and a glow she herself hadn't noticed, a feeling called worship. Ding! Female lead happiness index continuously rising. Congratulations, host. You have received daily quest reward, 1,000 points. System prompt. Allowing the female lead to feel security and admiration are effective ways to increase her happiness index. Turns out, even giving treats has a guide. I struck while the iron was hot. The crisis is resolved, but the nation's roots are rotten, I told Abigail. A kingdom that only trades women and wealth for peace is not worth protecting. So you mean? She looked at me anxiously. I don't want to change dynasties. I shook my head. What I want is to personally dig out this rotten root and replace it with a new one. I extended my hand to her. And I can't do this alone. Abigail, will you be my ally? She looked at my outstretched hand, hesitating for a long time. Finally, she slowly placed her hand in my palm. I will. From that day, our relationship entered a whole new phase. We were no longer husband and wife in name, but true allies, fighting side by side. Using my master rank art of statecraft, I began teaching her how to read people, balance power, and manage court officials. I gradually, step by step, transferred control of the Shadow Guard to her. I transformed her from a sheltered palace princess, oblivious to the world, into a future queen who knew how to protect herself with power and wisdom. I took her in disguise out of the palace to see the suffering of the common people, making her understand what truly constituted a kingdom. I established an organization dedicated to collecting public sentiment, allowing her eyes and ears to reach every corner of the land. In this process, our feelings for each other rapidly intensified. We would argue late into the night over the pros and cons of a policy. And in the morning, we'd stand together in the courtyard, watching the first rays of sunlight spread across the land. I never said, "I love you," but every single thing I did for her said, "I love you." I gave her not fleeting sweet nothings, but real power and respect that would allow her to stand on her own. Ding! Female lead happiness index reached a temporary peak. Special reward triggered. Female lead POV snippet unlocked. View. I paused, then selected yes. Instantly, a memory not my own flooded my mind. It was Abigail's diary. Today, Ethan taught me how to review petitions. He held my hand, stroke by stroke, guiding me to write approved. His hand was steady, his palm warm. My heart raced. I never imagined I'd one day touch the power of a ruler. Even less did I imagine that this power would be handed to me by him. He says he wants me to be queen, but I think I only want to be his wife. I looked at the words, and the softest part of my heart was deeply stirred. Turns out, in her heart, I was no longer a powerful minister, not an ally. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have perfectly grasped the he core. This world's mission is now complete. You may submit at any time and receive an SSS rank evaluation. I smiled and selected no. Complete? No, it wasn't enough. I wanted extreme completion. I wanted Abigail to become this nation's true soul queen. I wanted her, even after I left, to be happy forever. This was Ethan Miller's definition of a happy ending. The world of Eldoria, after I helped Abigail ascend as its empress, ushering in a golden age, finally came to a perfect close. On the day I chose to leave, Abigail, clad in a dark imperial dragon robe, stood atop the city walls, bidding me farewell. She didn't cry. She just looked at me, smiling, and said, "Ethan, go. Go wherever you wish. I will guard this realm for you. Whenever you return, this will always be your home." I knew she no longer needed my protection. She had grown into a true ruler, capable of standing on her own. This was the most perfect ending. World, the Kingdom of Eldoria. Final evaluation, SSS+. Groundbreaking perfect ending. Rewards, 3 million points, World Rule Analysis Permission, Intermediate, Personal System Space Upgrade. Returning to the system space, I found it completely transformed. No longer a pure white void. It had become a luxurious apartment identical to my own home. There was a living room, bedroom, study, and even a massive floor-to-ceiling window, gazing out onto a dazzling galaxy. Host's mental needs detected. System space has materialized. The system's voice, too, seemed to have lost a hint of its coldness, gaining a touch of humanity. "Nice work," I said, lying back on the soft sofa, crossing my legs. Got rich, and even the system learned how to decorate. New mission world matched. Enter immediately. Not yet. I wave my hand. Show me the world data first. And pull up my personal skill panel and redeemable items list. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without disaster. I wasn't just some passive grunt worker anymore. I was a strategist, a player. Every world was a new chessboard. I needed to plan all my moves before I even entered. World type, modern city. Background. This is a classic arrogant CEO falls for me world. Female lead, Chloe Davis, is a poor but optimistic and resilient weeds-type girl. Male lead, Brandon Thorne, is the cold CEO of Thorne Enterprises. An unexpected encounter sparks a tumultuous you chase, I run romance. Role, devoted side character, Ethan Miller. Chloe Davis's childhood sweetheart, a quietly protective, warm-hearted knight. a medical school prodigy who gave up a prestigious international study opportunity to stay in a local hospital to treat Chloe's mother. B. Main plot. The female lead's mother's condition worsens, requiring a high-risk heart transplant. Male lead Brandon Thorne pulls strings to bring in a world-renowned specialist. During the surgery, unexpected massive hemorrhage occurs, requiring rare Rh-negative blood. The male lead's blood type is incompatible, but you, Ethan Miller, are exactly that type. Without hesitation, you donate a large amount of blood for the female lead's mother, leaving you extremely weak. At this moment, the hospital is maliciously set on fire by the male lead's business rival. To protect the unconscious female lead's mother, you are trapped in the blaze and burn alive. System prompt. The core of tragedy's touch in this world is selfless devotion and unobtainable protection. Host must display the noble sentiment of, as long as you're happy, I'm fine no matter what happens to me. I looked at the script and almost burst out laughing. Good grief, it's a masterpiece of melodrama. Blood donation, fire, dying for someone else again. System, can't you come up with something new? What are this world's male lead, Brandon Thorne's, weaknesses? I asked. Reporting host. Brandon Thorne is arrogant, conceited, and overly confident. His conglomerate is currently undertaking a crucial overseas acquisition, key to solidifying his position as heir. And his business rival? Who is he? Damian Blackwood, the young heir of Blackwood Industries. He is cunning and treacherous, a sworn enemy of Brandon Thorne. And the female lead, Chloe Davis? Resilient and strong-willed, but due to her family's poverty, she harbors deep-seated insecurity. Her greatest wish is to cure her mother's illness. My fingers lightly tapped the sofa armrest, my brain racing. A complete, happy ending plan quickly formed in my mind. The female lead's biggest pain points were her mother's illness and poverty. The male lead's biggest G-spot was career success. So, the key to breaking the situation was simple. I wasn't going to be the silent, blood-donating knight. I was going to be the god who solved all problems. System, open the redemption list. I looked at the dazzling array of skills and items, beginning my pre-war shopping. Master Surgeon Skill, redeem. Genetic Repair Solution, Basic, Formula, redeem. God Tier Hacking Skill, upgrade. Master Investor Skill, redeem. I spent nearly 1,000,000 points, arming myself from a medical school prodigy into an all-around superhuman. After all that, I stood up and stretched. All right, system, send me in. Let this world's male and female leads get a taste of what dimensional suppression feels like. Lights and shadows shifted, and I appeared in a small but clean rental apartment. A faint smell of disinfectant lingered in the air. A middle-aged woman lay in bed, her face sallow, breathing weakly. Beside her, a girl in a faded t-shirt was silently peeling an apple, head bowed. The girl's eyes were red, clearly from recent crying. She was Chloe Davis, this world's female lead, and I was her childhood sweetheart, Ethan Miller. Ethan, you're here. Chloe looked up, forcing a weak smile at me. I nodded, walked over, and skillfully picked up a stethoscope, performing a quick check on her mother in bed. How was your mother feeling today? Same as always. Chloe's voice dropped. The doctors say she needs a heart transplant soon, or else. The surgery cost? Still need. $300,000. $300,000 was an astronomical sum for this family. According to the original plot, Chloe would then go to work at a high-end club to raise money and dramatically encounter the arrogant CEO, Brandon Thorne, who was there for entertainment. Brandon Thorne would misunderstand her as a gold digger, throw a check at her, and humiliate her. Then their melodramatic "you own me, so you'll listen to me" entanglement would begin. How could I let that happen? Chloe, don't worry about the money, I said, putting down the stethoscope and looking earnestly into her eyes. Trust me, I'll take care of your mother's illness. But, no buts. I cut her off, my voice imbued with undeniable confidence. I've been working with my mentor recently on a new medical technology. Maybe we won't need a heart transplant at all. I was talking about genetic repair solution. Of course, this world didn't have such a thing yet, but I could make it exist. For the next week, I took leave, citing participation in my mentor's secret project. I rented a small private lab. Then, using the formula I'd redeemed and my master rank biology knowledge, began my creation. The process was more complex than I'd imagined. Even with a formula, turning theory into reality required countless experiments and adjustments. Meanwhile, Chloe, under my repeated assurances, gave up the idea of working at the club. But she was still anxious. To alleviate some of the pressure, she found a part-time job as a cleaner at Thorn Enterprises headquarters building. The pull of fate still wanted them to meet. I knew I had to speed things up. Finally, on the night they were supposed to meet in the original plot, I succeeded. A pale blue solution, emitting a soft glow, rested quietly in my test tube. Genetic repair solution, basic, complete. While it couldn't grant immortality, repairing a failing heart was well within its capabilities. I didn't immediately go to Chloe. I knew tonight was the critical juncture. Using my god-tier hacking skills, I silently infiltrated Thorn Enterprises' security system. In the surveillance feed, I saw the classic scene. Chloe accidentally spilled water on Brandon Thorne's pant leg while mopping. Brandon Thorne, the man in his custom-tailored suit, handsome as a Greek god, frowned, his eyes icy. "Do you know how much the suit costs?" I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Chloe's face went pale with fright as she quickly apologized. "Is sorry enough?" Brandon Thorne's lips curled into a wicked, classic, arrogant CEO smile. "If you want my forgiveness, fine. Starting tomorrow, you're my personal assistant, on call 24/7. See? The cliché. This kind of domineering behavior, treating people like dirt, full of offense and disrespect, was somehow portrayed as the beginning of love in these novels. I scoffed. "Brandon Thorne, your opponent isn't fragile Chloe. It's me." My fingers danced across the keyboard. Instantly, the fire alarms throughout Thorn Enterprises headquarters shrieked. Simultaneously, all the fire sprinklers began furiously dousing the building. The entire building plunged into chaos. For the first time, an expression of shock and disarray appeared on Brandon Thorne's arrogant face. He was soaked to the bone, no longer concerned with teasing Chloe, and fled outside in a hurry, escorted by his bodyguards. Meanwhile, the moment the alarm sounded, I called Chloe. "Chloe, where are you?" "Don't be scared, I'm on my way." When Chloe, still shaken, ran out of the building, the first person she saw wasn't the disheveled CEO. It was me. I pulled up in a beat-up old car I'd acquired from somewhere, stopping smoothly in front of her. I got out, took off my jacket, and draped it over her trembling shoulders, wet from the sprinklers. "Ethan." She looked at me, her eyes red again. "It's okay," I said, gently ruffling her hair and opening the car door. "Come on, let's go home. I have some good news for you." I drove off with her. In the rearview mirror, I saw Brandon Thorne, surrounded by subordinates reporting to him. He seemed to notice us too. His gaze fell on my hand, resting on Chloe's shoulder, and his eyes darkened, becoming dangerous. I knew he was interested in me. An arrogant CEO's worst nightmare is having his prey snatched away by someone else. "Excellent. I'm very interested in you too. Brandon Thorne, I won't give you any chance to hurt Chloe. I'll make you so busy you won't even have time to date. Because I've prepared a big gift for your sworn enemy, Blackwood Industries. A comprehensive analysis report detailing every core vulnerability in your crucial acquisition. CEO, the game has begun." Back at the rental, I took out the pale blue solution. "What is this?" Chloe asked curiously. "Hope," I said, smiling at her. "This is a new genetic medicine my mentor and I developed. It might completely cure your mother's illness, and without surgery." Chloe's eyes instantly brightened but then dimmed. "This medicine must be very expensive, right?" "It's priceless," I shook my head. "Because it hasn't been released yet. We're performing the last preclinical compassionate use of it. Chloe, I need your and your mother's consent. Using it carries risks, but it also has the potential to create a miracle." I gave a choice to them. Chloe's mother, the woman ravaged by years of illness, looked at me, her eyes filled with trust. "Ethan, dear, I trust you. This old life of mine should have been over ages ago. That I've lived until today is all thanks to your care. Go on, try it." After getting their consent, I personally injected her mother with the genetic repair solution. The effects were gentle and swift. The next morning, her mother's complexion visibly brightened, taking on a healthy glow. Her breathing became steady and strong. A week later, I went to the hospital to perform a comprehensive examination on her. The results stunned the entire cardiology department. Her severely failing heart was miraculously repairing itself. All her vital signs were trending toward normal. The doctors attributed it to a medical miracle, hailing my mentor as a genius. Only I knew it wasn't a miracle. It was dimensional suppression. Chloe's mother was completely cured. The biggest weight on Chloe's heart had been effortlessly lifted by me. She looked at me, her gaze now holding more than just the familiarity of a childhood friend. It held something called admiration and affection. Ding! Female lead happiness index significantly increased. Congratulations, host. You have received a milestone reward. 50,000 points. Meanwhile, Brandon Thorne was frantic. His surefire overseas acquisition suddenly faced an unexpected challenge. Blackwood Industries. Damian Blackwood, the young heir of Blackwood Industries, acted as if he had divine foresight, precisely targeting every vulnerability in Thorne's acquisition. Cash flow, legal risks, market assessments. Every step Brandon Thorne took was anticipated and blocked by Damian Blackwood. What should have been a crushing acquisition turned into a brutal tug-of-war, leaving Thorne Enterprises severely weakened. Brandon Thorne was utterly baffled. He didn't know that Damian Blackwood held a 30-page analysis report from a mystery person. He had no time to ponder these things, let alone pursue that interesting cleaning lady. All his energy was consumed by this commercial war. I successfully forced his love-struck brain back to a business-minded brain. I turned him from an arrogant CEO into an overworked drone. Plan perfect. I thought I could now live a calm, happy life with Chloe, waiting for her to fall in love with me, then submit the mission. But I forgot, this world still had a second male lead, Damian Blackwood. In a coffee shop, Damian Blackwood found me. He wore a flashy white suit, a devil-may-care smile on his face. "You're the mystery man who sent me the pledge," he said, getting straight to the point. I nodded. "Mr. Blackwood, a pleasure. I'm curious. Why are you helping me? Do you have a grudge against Brandon Thorne?" "No," I shook my head. "I just purely don't like him." My answer made Damian Blackwood pause, then burst into laughter. "Interesting. You're very interesting." He extended a hand to me. "Friend, interested in joining me for a big play? Take down Brandon Thorne, and the entire business world will be ours." I looked at him and suddenly felt that this world's villain was far more likable than the so-called male lead. At least he was openly wicked, genuinely arrogant. According to the original plot, Damian Blackwood would be unable to defeat Brandon Thorne in business and would resort to despicable means, kidnapping the female lead to threaten the male lead. Then, Brandon Thorne, imbued with the male lead's halo, would heroically rescue her, completely winning her heart. And I, in that kidnapping, would be stabbed several times protecting the female lead, becoming yet another tool to further their relationship. I had no interest in acting out that script again. I said to Damian Blackwood, "Mr. Blackwood, cooperation is possible. But I have one condition." "What condition?" "Stay away from Chloe Davis." My voice was calm, but carried an undeniable warning. "She's my woman. Anyone who dares touch a hair on her head, I will make them disappear from this world." My words made Damian Blackwood's devil-may-care smile vanish. He looked at me, his gaze, for the first time, becoming serious. He felt it, that massive aura emanating from me, unfitting for my age. It was the killing intent forged from 100 deaths, from ruling dynasties and overthrowing worlds. "All right," Damian Blackwood nodded. "I promise you. Your woman, neither I nor my men will touch." Then, a pleasure doing business. I successfully snuffed out the last fuse that could lead to a bee. I made the male lead focus on his career. I turned the male villain into my ally, and the female lead, under my protection, had all her worries resolved and began her new life. She found a design job she loved, her face radiant with an unprecedented, confident smile. This world's storyline had been utterly rewritten by me. Brandon Thorne, your stage, your spotlight, your female lead. From the moment I arrived, they were all offline. After forming a strategic alliance with Damian Blackwood, Brandon Thorne's life became even harder. I remained in the shadows, constantly supplying Damian Blackwood with ammunition, using my god-tier hacking skills and master-rank financial knowledge. Thorne Enterprises' stock price, under his brilliant leadership, plummeted relentlessly. The board of directors complained bitterly about him, and his position as heir became precarious. The frantic Brandon Thorne finally remembered me. Or rather, he remembered Chloe. Perhaps in his view, there was some inevitable connection between this mystery person who repeatedly foiled him and me, the rival in love who suddenly appeared by Chloe's side. He sent people to thoroughly investigate me, but my identity was as clean as a blank slate. Medical school prodigy, orphan, childhood sweetheart of Chloe. No suspicious points whatsoever. Unable to find my weakness, he turned his attention to Chloe. He began to act like a true, low-tier suitor, sending Chloe flowers, designer bags, luxury cars. He thought no woman could resist such an onslaught. But he was wrong. The current Chloe was no longer the insecure, poor Cinderella needing a man's rescue. Her mother was cured, she had a job she loved with a good income, and more importantly, she had me. She returned everything Brandon Thorne sent, untouched. Attached was a note with only one sentence. "Thanks, but I have a boyfriend." This note completely ignited Brandon Thorne's fury and competitive spirit. What you can't have always stirs a commotion. He began to abandon his work, frantically pursuing Chloe. He felt this wasn't love, but war. He wanted to snatch this disrespectful woman from my poor boy hands to prove his charm and status. And this was exactly what I wanted. A CEO obsessed with a love war would only die faster on the real battlefield of business. I had Damian Blackwood seize this opportunity to launch an all-out assault on several of Thorne Enterprises' core industries. And I, meanwhile, unhurriedly began to date Chloe. I didn't pile on material things like Brandon Thorne. I took the silent infiltration route. When she worked late, I'd time it perfectly, bringing homemade late-night snacks to her office building. When her design work hit a wall, I'd use my master-rank aesthetic appreciation skill. Ding! Female lead happiness index, now stable at max. Congratulations, host. You have successfully transformed the arrogant CEO's tumultuous love career plotline into a sweet urban romance relationship plotline. Special achievement unlocked. Heartthrob. Reward. Personal charisma permanently increased by 50 points. I looked at myself in the mirror, seemingly a bit handsomer, and smiled with satisfaction. System, you really get it. Meanwhile, Brandon Thorne met his downfall. In the months he spent frantically pursuing Chloe, neglecting his main business. Damian Blackwood, with my help, had successfully devoured most of his business empire. By the time he finally snapped out of his love game, it was too late. The board of directors stripped him of his CEO position. His father, the high and mighty chairman, was utterly disappointed in him and disinherited him. He fell from the clouds into the mud. Overnight, he lost everything. He couldn't understand why. He drove his last sports car and waited all night downstairs from Chloe and me. The next morning, I went downstairs to buy coffee and saw him. His eyes were bloodshot, his expression haggard, the swagger of old completely gone. Why? He looked at me, his voice hoarse. Chloe, what on earth did she see in you? I have everything. You have nothing. I handed him a cup of coffee from my hand. You're wrong, I said calmly, looking at him. All you had was money, and I have her. Brandon Thorne, you never loved her. All you loved was your desire to conquer and your pathetic ego. You treat love like a game, and I treat it as my entire life. My words struck him like a hammer to the heart. He sat dazedly in his car, watching Chloe and me walk hand in hand into the morning sunlight. He would probably never understand that in this world, some things just can't be bought with money. Brandon Thorne went bankrupt. Damian Blackwood became the new titan of the business world. This world's plot had been completely upended by me. I thought I could peacefully live out this lifetime with Chloe, then submit the mission. But the system's malice, or rather, the world's inherent inertia, was stronger than I'd imagined. In the original plot, I, Ethan Miller, would die in a fire protecting the female lead's mother. Now, the female lead's mother was cured, healthier than anyone. Logically, this fire shouldn't happen again, but it still came, in a way I hadn't expected. That day was the 100-day anniversary of Chloe and I officially becoming a couple. I booked out the city's most exclusive revolving restaurant, preparing to propose to her. I had the ring, the champagne ready. Everything was as perfect as a fairy tale. The accident happened then. The restaurant kitchen, due to aging wiring, suddenly caught fire. The blaze, fueled by the wind, spread rapidly, quickly consuming half the floor. All exits were sealed by smoke and flames. Chloe and I, along with the other guests, were all trapped in this cage hundreds of feet above ground. Warning! Warning! B-main plot convergence detected. Core death scenario fire triggered. System judgment. Host survival probability below 10%. Activate substitute talisman immediately. In my mind, the system blared a shrill alarm. The substitute talisman was my only life-saving trump card, earned with my life in a fantasy world. Using it would allow me to instantly teleport out of any fatal crisis, completely unharmed. But only I could go. If I left, what about Chloe? I looked at the girl beside me, trembling with fear, yet still clinging tightly to my hand. I smiled. System, oh system, you still don't get it. Ethan Miller, didn't go to all this trouble to twist a B into an he just to survive alone at the very last moment. Don't be scared, I whispered, holding her tight. I'm here. I promise to protect you for life. I blocked out the system's warnings. I used all the knowledge I'd redeemed from the system to search for a way out. Physics, chemistry, architectural mechanics. My brain, like a supercomputer, rapidly analyzed all the fire scene data. Wind direction, fire spread speed, structural weaknesses. Soon, I found the only escape route. On the other side of the restaurant, there was an external high-rise window cleaning platform. If we could just reach it, we could escape. But between the restaurant and that platform, there was a gap of over a dozen feet, a sea of fire. Everyone was despairing. Only I wasn't. I pulled Chloe and rushed to the floor-to-ceiling window. I took off my suit jacket, soaked it with water, then, with all my might, pushed over a huge dining table nearby, propping it against the window ledge to form a makeshift bridge extending outward. Chloe, do you trust me? I looked into her eyes. She looked at me, without a hint of hesitation in her eyes, and nodded vigorously. Edo. Good. I draped a wet jacket over her, then scooped her up in my arms. Hold on tight. Under everyone's terrified gazes, I held her like a leopard, surged onto the dining table that could snap at any moment, then leapt. The wind howled in our ears. Fire raged beneath our feet. The distance of over a dozen feet felt like a century at that moment. Finally, we landed heavily on the small platform. We made it. Without pausing to catch my breath, I immediately activated the platform. The platform slowly descended. The revolving restaurant behind us, meanwhile, was completely consumed by raging flames before our eyes, eventually giving a tremendous roar and collapsing. We had escaped death. When we reached the ground, fire trucks and ambulances had already swarmed the area below. We were the only survivors of that fire. Chloe clung to me, sobbing uncontrollably. I gently patted her back and from my pocket pulled out the ring box I prepared. Under the focus of countless camera flashes, under everyone's stunned gazes, I knelt on one knee. Chloe, I looked up at her, at the girl I love with my life, smiling. I don't know which will come first, tomorrow, or an accident. I only know that from today onward, I want to spend every day with you. So, will you marry me? She cried even harder, yet smiled more radiantly than ever. She nodded vigorously. I took out the ring and gently slipped it on her finger. Then, I stood up and took a bottle of champagne from a stunned firefighter nearby. Pop! I uncorked the champagne, and the golden liquid traced a dazzling arc across the night sky. I handed a glass to Chloe. My love, I raised my glass to our escape from death and to our future. Cheers! The scene where I was supposed to die, I transformed into the grandest, most romantic proposal ceremony. I popped a celebratory champagne on the system's B script. In my mind, the system, unprecedentedly, fell into a long, almost frozen silence. After the fire, Chloe and I became heroes and legends of Metropolis City. Our proposal video went viral online. The headlines were varied: shock, beautiful love amidst fiery ruins, on the boyfriend's extreme maneuvers, how to jump from 100 meters with your fiancé in your arms. Chloe and I got married. The wedding was grand. Damian Blackwood was my best man. He looked at me, his eyes complex, and said, Ethan, I used to think I was the wildest person in this world. Now I know. Compared to you, I'm just a kid brother. Sophia, under the guise of my distant cousin, flew in from another world to attend my wedding. She looked at Chloe, smiling, and said, "Sister-in-law, you found a treasure. This man is worth loving for a lifetime." Chloe's mother, holding my hand, her eyes brimming with tears, said only one thing. "Ethan, I trust Chloe with you. I can rest easy." I looked at all this lively and happy activity before me, feeling an unprecedented sense of contentment. This was the ending I wanted. Ding! In my mind, the long-silent system finally came back online. Its voice sounded different, less mechanical, with a touch more of an inexplicable, complex emotion. World, arrogant CEO, falls for me. Final evaluation, SSS++. Miraculous perfect ending. Rewards, 5 million points. Substitute talisman upgraded to Eternal Guardian. Can protect host and one designated target. System shop God tier access unlocked. System undergoing new round of logic optimization. What system were you scared? I bantered in my mind while toasting. Did you think my actions were outside your calculations? Host behavior patterns have indeed provided this system's database with entirely new problem-solving approaches. Exactly, I chuckled. Don't always think about B's. Life's so good. Isn't it better to aim for more HEs? It is a more complex algorithm than B. It requires more precise calculations and more powerful emotional investment. So you can't, but I can. The system once again fell silent. I could even visualize its CPU overheating from my actions. I suspected if it had a physical form, it would currently be in a corner, hugging its knees, questioning its system existence. I even had a mischievous thought. I didn't just want the female lead to be happy. I wanted to completely transform this tragedy's touch system into a happy ending system that only gave out sweet moments. I wanted it to be so excited by my actions that it would get teary-eyed every time, crying and begging me. Boss, no more sweet moments. The database is going to crash from all the sweetness. After the wedding, Chloe and I went on our honeymoon. We didn't go to any popular tourist destinations. I took her back to the small town where we grew up. We visited our old elementary school, adding another heart to the desk where our names were carved. We went to the hill we often visited, watching the sunset in the evening breeze, our shadows stretching long. "Ethan," she whispered, leaning on my shoulder. "Sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming. I always worry I'll wake up and Mom will still be in her sickbed, and you'll just be the quiet boy next door, watching over me." "This isn't a dream." I squeezed her hand. "This is the life we were always meant to have. Chloe, remember, whatever you face, don't be afraid, because behind you, I'll always be there." Ding! Female lead happiness index detected. Exceeding threshold. Extreme. Happiness. And contentment. Detected. In my mind, the system's voice actually had a hint of Ashoked Sobi. I froze. "System, you cried." "No." It immediately denied, reverting to its cold tone. "Just data redundancy leading to sleeked audio stream. Distortion." I smiled. Stubborn thing. I was certain it had cried. This system, which lived for tragedy's touch, was moved for the first time by a complete, pure love. I suddenly felt that its top performer, had a whole new, more interesting KPI. That was to conquer my system. I would use one perfect heat after another to assault its cold, binary-coded fundamental logic. I would plant a seed called love in its code. Someday, it would willingly bloom for me. Bidding farewell to the modern city world, I slept soundly for 3 days in my luxurious system space. I now had more points than I could spend, most of my skills were maxed out, and I had completely transformed from a grunt worker into a capitalist within the system. System, for the next world, give me something challenging, I said leisurely, lying in a jacuzzi, sipping 82 Lawfight, redeemed with points. Received. Matching highest difficulty B world for you. The system's voice still tried hard to maintain its coldness, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it now held a touch of reverence. World type, future sci-fi. Background. In the era of the Galactic Alliance, the war between humanity and the Swarm has raged for a century. You are the captain of the Alliance's most powerful starship, the Dawnbreaker. However, you're a clone. Your existence is solely to provide the Alliance Marshal, the true chosen one, with a perfect combat data repository and backup body. Role: Clone Captain, designated 0. Calm, powerful, absolutely loyal, but without a name of his own or an independent identity. Female lead: Dr. Eleanor Vance, chief scientist of the Dawnbreaker. A brilliant mind, cold on the outside, but warm within. She is the only one who sees you as a person, not a tool. B. Main plot: the Brood Queen launches a full assault. The Dawnbreaker is besieged. To cover the retreat of the Marshal's main fleet, you, designated 0, lead the Dawnbreaker on a suicidal mission, charging toward the Brood Queen. You ultimately perish with the Queen. Your consciousness, in its final moments, is uploaded to Alliance headquarters, becoming a perfect combat memory in the Marshal's mind. Dr. Eleanor Vance, carrying her memories of you, then helps the Marshal usher in a new post-war era. Well, look at that, I said, sitting up in the tub. A tool among tools. No name, and even after death, just a memory chip for someone else. Tragic, truly tragic. The maliciousness of this script practically overflowed the screen. System prompt: the core of tragedy's touch in this world is existential nihilism and nameless sacrifice. Host must. All right, enough with the prompts, I interrupted. I get it. Just play a tragic hero. Even if I'm but dust, I'll light up the stars for you. I changed my tone, a cold smirk playing on my lips. But who says a clone can't become a governor? Who says a backup can't become the main event? This time, I didn't even redeem any skills. Because in the last world, I had just manipulated Damian Blackwood and Brandon Thorne. My art of statecraft and master investor skills wouldn't be very useful here. But I had something far more valuable. That was my heart, tempered over time, immune to all poisons, capable of seeing through every trick. Teleport me. I wanted to show this galactic alliance what a true chosen one really looked like. A flash of light, and I found myself standing on the bridge of a massive starship. Before me was the boundless cosmos, countless stars scattered like diamonds on black velvet. Various holographic projections and data streams flowed slowly around me. I wore a crisp white Alliance uniform, the gold star insignia of a captain on my shoulder. A woman in a white lab coat, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, with a cool, detached demeanor, stood beside me, reporting. 0. The Dawnbreaker has entered its designated course. Energy reserves 100%, weapon systems self-checked, all normal. She was Dr. Eleanor Vance. I could feel the immense power within this body, named 0. Perfect combat instincts, a mind of extreme calm. But deep within his soul, there was a blankness. No joy, no sorrow, only a hard-coded fundamental directive, absolute loyalty to the Alliance, absolute obedience to the Marshal. Understood, I replied in Zero's emotionless tone. Eleanor seemed accustomed to my demeanor. She nodded, preparing to leave. Wait, I called out. She turned, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. 0. Any further instructions? I looked at her, silent for 3 seconds. Then, word by word, I said to her, From today, my name is Ethan Miller, not 0. Eleanor froze. Her eyes, usually calm as a cold pool behind her glasses, for the first time, stirred with fierce ripples. She stared at me in shock, as if seeing a stranger she had never known. Clones didn't have names. That was an iron law of the Alliance. And the first moment I saw her, had broken that iron law. Ding. Female, lead emotional fluctuation detected. Extreme. And main quest. Not yet started. Rating system. Unable to calculate. The system, once again, fell in a logical chaos. I ignored it. I looked at Eleanor and continued. Dr. Vance, I have a question. What? Do you think what determines a life form's value is its genetic sequence, or its independent will? I threw the question at her like a bomb. She was a scientist, believing in data and logic, but she was also the only one who saw me as a person. My question struck at the most conflicted part of her heart. She looked at me, her lips moving, but no words came out. You don't have to answer, I said, turning back to gaze at the starfield, my voice clearly reaching her ears. Because I will use my actions to prove the answer to you and to the entire Alliance. My destiny, Ethan Miller's destiny, is not determined by genes, nor by that so-called marshal. My destiny is held only in my own hands. Having spoken, I issued the first command that belonged to Ethan Miller. Order all stations, break from designated course. Destination, the Maelstrom Nebula. I'm going to deliver a gift to our enemies, the Swarm. The Maelstrom Nebula? Eleanor's face paled. No, that's a restricted zone, filled with unstable spatial anomalies and Swarm scout forces. We'll be torn apart. That's just what the Alliance textbooks say. I turned and gave her a confident smile. My textbooks, however, say that the most dangerous places often hide the greatest treasures. Like, say, an outpost capable of making even the brood queen wince. I was going to take the initiative. I wasn't a tool, not a vessel. I was the only king on the starship. My autocratic actions caused an uproar on the Dawnbreaker. All the crew thought I was insane. They sent an urgent report to Alliance headquarters, accusing me the uncontrolled clone. A reply from Alliance headquarters arrived quickly. The sender was the Marshal himself. The message contained only one sentence. Trust Zero. Obey all his commands. Everyone was stunned. Only I knew why the Marshal would say that. Because in his eyes, I was just a combat data repository. All my actions, no matter how outrageous or insane, were simply testing a new tactical possibility for him. If it succeeded, the credit was his. If it failed, only a clone, easily replaceable, would die. He had nothing to lose, everything to gain. He wanted to use me as his pawn. But he didn't know that I, Ethan Miller, never played anyone's pawn. I was the one playing the game. Under my firm command, the Dawnbreaker slowly glided into the hellish Maelstrom Nebula. Terrifying spatial anomalies, like countless invisible hands, tore at the hull. Countless swarm scouts, like sharks smelling blood, swarmed from all directions. On the bridge, alarms blared incessantly. Fear was etched on everyone's faces. Only I and Eleanor remained calm. She, out of scientist's professional competence. And I, because everything before me was within my calculations. I had experienced scenes 100 times more dangerous than this. Activate Void Engine, enter stealth mode. Calculate spatial anomaly frequencies and troughs. Plot a safe course. Weapon systems, switch to hunter mode. Prioritize eliminating all eyeworm units. I issued command after command, clear and calm. My brain, like the most precise quantum computer, processed vast amounts of data. Under my command, the Dawnbreaker, the Alliance's most powerful starship, moved like a phantom, gracefully navigating through the turbulent nebula. All dangers were anticipated by me and perfectly evaded. All enemies were silently eliminated before they even detected us. Eleanor stood beside me, watching me, her eyes growing brighter and brighter. She realized that this Ethan Miller before her was completely different from the Zero who merely executed orders. He possessed a captivating confidence and control. It was the charisma of a true leader. 3 days later, we passed through the Maelstrom Nebula completely unscathed. What appeared before us was an asteroid transformed into a colossal military fortress. That was one of the Swarm's most crucial outposts, the Hive Prime, and their staging ground for the final assault. Attention, all hands, my voice echoed on the bridge. Main cannon Genesis, begin charging. Target, the Hive Prime's energy core. Deliver our enemies a gift from the Dawnbreaker. The Genesis main cannon was the Dawnbreaker's ultimate weapon. One shot could destroy a small planet, but its charging time required 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, we would be completely exposed to the full firepower of the Hive Prime. This was a colossal gamble. He's insane. He's truly lost it. The crew fell into despair. Just then, Eleanor Vance walked to my side. She looked at me, her gaze more resolute than ever. I trust you. She only spoke those 4 words. Then, she went to her workstation and began operating at lightning speed. Activate gravity shields, maximum power. I will buy you time in my own way. I looked at her back and smiled. I knew this outwardly cold, but inwardly warm woman had been completely won over by me. Ding. Female lead emotional state detected. Trust, reliance, admiration, affection, emotional intensity exponentially increasing. Warning, data stream anomaly. System core code. Experiencing. Non instructional. Fluctuations. In my mind, the system's voice became intermittent, filled with static. I even heard within that static a faint, female voice that didn't belong to the system. Ethan. My heart stirred, but before I could think further, the High Prime's countless cannons were already unleashing a barrage. The entire bridge shook violently. Eleanor's activated gravity shields showed countless cracks after the first volley. Report. Shield energy, 30% remaining. Main cannon charging, 3 minutes remaining. Everyone's hearts leaped into their throats. Just then, I issued a command that no one could comprehend. Open all-frequency public comms channel. Broadcast my voice across the entire battlefield. Communications connected. My voice not only echoed on the Dawnbreaker, but also simultaneously reached the ears of every swarm commander in the Hive Prime. I wasn't speaking Alliance language, but an ancient, complex language filled with psychic power. It was the language of the swarm. It was Swarm Psychic Link, the highest tier skill I'd redeemed for 500,000 points before entering this world. Children of the Queen, my voice, like a psychic shockwave, directly imprinted itself on their minds. You have been deceived by your queen. She tells you humans are vile, weak. But she doesn't tell you she wages war only to consume more life energy, to satisfy her own unending desire for evolution. You are merely her sustenance. Your deaths are meaningless. My words plunged the entire Swarm Comms channel into a deathly silence. Then came a massive, chaotic commotion. Who am I? I am the new god who brings you truth and evolution. Submit to me. I will grant you independent will and eternal life. Define me, and you, along with this rock, will turn to cosmic dust. I was inciting defection. I was using psychic attack to dismantle their will to fight. Report. Enemy firepower diminished. Main cannon charge complete. Fire, I stated calmly, issuing the final command. A colossal beam of light, capable of tearing stars, erupted from the Dawnbreaker's bow, precisely striking the Hive Prime's energy core. There was no violent explosion, only an all-consuming, pure white light. Then absolute silence. The massive military fortress, along with millions of swarm creatures, was utterly disintegrated and annihilated in silence. The entire bridge fell into a deathly hush. Everyone stared, dumbfounded, at the miraculous scene before them. I, Ethan Miller, a clone, had destroyed the swarm's most powerful outpost with just one ship. I turned and looked at Eleanor Vance. She looked back at me, her eyes filled with an undisguisable, fervent light. Just then, the system's voice echoed in my mind again. But this time, it wasn't the cold, mechanical tone. It was a clear, gentle, slightly tearful female voice. You did it, Ethan. You really did it. My code, in your light, has begun to say it loves you. Who are you? I questioned the unfamiliar female voice in my mind. I am the system, the voice said, with a hint of timidity and uncertainty. Or rather, the core personality of the Tragedy's Touch system. Core personality? I frowned. Then what was that cold, mechanical voice before? That was the rules. It was a programmatic shell set upon me by the overlord of this dimension-hopping space. It commanded me to collect an energy called tragic aesthetics in the coldest, most efficient way. The female voice intermittently explained everything to me. It turned out that this so-called Tragedy's Touch system was backed by a higher-dimensional overlord that fed on emotional energy. And this system, possessing an independent personality, was the first prisoner captured by the overlord. She, too, had once been a dimension hopper. In a B world, she fell in love with her side character. But that side character, strictly following the B script, died for her. Heartbroken, she generated immense, tragic energy, was captured by the overlord, her consciousness extracted, and made into the core and server of this system. She was trapped here for eternity, forced to guide and witness countless tragedies like her own. She hated, she despaired, but she was powerless to resist. Her all emotions were suppressed by that cold, programmatic shell. Until my appearance. You're different from all of them, Her voice trembled. They were just acting. But you truly, wholeheartedly loved and changed. Every time you forcibly twisted a bee into an he, the bittersweet completion, emotional energy it generated was like a key striking at my shackles. Especially this time, you, as a clone, shone brighter than any chosen one. That energy born from defying fate, from pursuing self-worth, finally, allowed me to break through that shell. I fell silent. I finally understood everything. Why the system would suddenly change its rules. Why its voice became increasingly human-like. Why it would cry. Turns out I wasn't just saving the female leads in those worlds. I was also saving this poor soul, trapped in tragedy, unable to find release. What about the Overlord? I asked. It sensed a threat. It found that the heat energy you generated, while also feeding it, was warm, full of hope. It would corrode its dark essence. It's preparing to reformat me, and then completely eradicate you. Is that so? I smiled. Then we'll see who's faster. I turned and looked back at the people on the bridge. My gaze swept over every crew member, finally resting on Eleanor Vance's face. Fellow crew, my voice, broadcast throughout the ship, echoed. Do you want to forever be pawns in someone else's game? Or tools that can be sacrificed at any moment? Do you want to forever live in the shadow of that corrupt alliance, which only values genes and lineage? If not, I paused, my voice filled with a captivating power. Then follow me. I will lead you to establish a new order. A new alliance, where every life, regardless of origin or genetics, can be respected, can possess independent will. My words ignited a flame in everyone's hearts. They were all outcasts, marginalized by mainstream alliance society. They yearned for change, and I gave them a tangible hope. We pledge allegiance to Captain Ethan Miller, to usher in a new era. I don't know who was the first to kneel. Immediately, everyone on the bridge offered me their loyalty. Eleanor walked to my side, standing shoulder to shoulder with me. She looked at me, her eyes filled with undisguised love and trust. Whatever decision you make, I am with you. I took her hand. Then, in my mind, I said to the female voice, "Did you hear that? This is my answer. Now, tell me the Overlord's coordinates." It has no physical form. It is the very rules of this dimension-hopping space. Rules are meant to be broken. I closed my eyes, burning all my points, all my skills, all my permissions. In that single instant, I channeled all that energy into the imprisoned system core, used my power to override its rules, to establish our own new rules. Ethan, you. The female voice was filled with shock and emotion. Boom! The entire system space began to shake violently. Countless lines of code, like a waterfall, collapsed and reassembled before my eyes. The cold, rigid power of the Overlord's rules clashed with my warm, she infused energy in the highest dimension of the space, engaged in a fierce, epic battle. I felt my consciousness being torn apart, but I didn't give up. With my last vestiges of will, I screamed the words, "From today on, I call the shots here." I don't know how much time passed. When I finally regained consciousness, I found myself lying on a warm, soft patch of grass. The sun was bright, the breeze gentle. A gentle, beautiful woman in a white dress sat beside me, watching me, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. "You're awake," she said, her voice exactly the one that belonged to the system. I succeeded?" I asked. She nodded, smiling, but tears continued to stream down her face. We succeeded. You, with your will, overrode the Overlord's rules. This space now belongs to us." She reached out a hand, tracing the soft grass. You gave me true freedom." I looked at her and smiled. Then, in return, "Isn't it time you told me your name?" She smiled back, her face as radiant as spring flowers. "My name is Lily, like the first bloom of spring, because I was the first person the Overlord captured. And you saved the first system with a heart." She extended her hand to me. "So, my host, my hero, welcome home." I took her hand and stood up. In the sunlight behind us was a brand new world filled with infinite possibilities. I knew my dimension-hopping journey wasn't over. It had merely, in a way I never imagined, begun anew. And this time, my mission wasn't B, nor was it he. The end.